Chapter 8. On the Run. The silence between them was suffocating as Louis and Harry rushed around the house, grabbing only what they could carry. The pounding on the door grew louder, more insistent, as the two men outside became impatient. Harry's heart was racing, his hands trembling as he zipped up his backpack. "We can't stay here, Harry," Louis whispered urgently, pulling on a hoodie and grabbing his car keys. "They'll find a way in. We need to leave, now." Harry nodded, his mind struggling to catch up with the reality of the situation. "Where will we go?" Louis hesitated for a second, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for an answer. "Somewhere they won't expect. I know a place, but we have to move fast." Without another word, Louis grabbed Harry's hand, pulling him toward the back door. They slipped out quietly, the cool morning air hitting them like a wake-up call. Harry felt his chest tighten with fear, his footsteps faltering as they rushed through the yard. "Louis, who are those people?" Harry finally asked as they reached Louis's car. "They're people I've been trying to avoid for a long time," Louis muttered, unlocking the car doors. "They're not here to ask questions, they're here to force me back into a world I don't want to be a part of anymore." Harry slid into the passenger seat, his pulse pounding in his ears. "But why now? Why come after you now?" Louis shook his head, starting the engine and pulling out of the driveway. "I don't know. Maybe they found out where I've been hiding. Maybe they think they can use you against me." The thought sent a shiver down Harry's spine. He had never imagined being caught up in something like this, fleeing from people who seemed dangerous, all because Louis had wanted to escape the spotlight. They drove in tense silence, the roads quiet in the early morning hours. Harry glanced over at Louis, his mind spinning with 1,000 questions. He had thought Louis was just running from fame, from the pressures of being a celebrity. But this was something darker, something more serious. "What's the plan?" Harry asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Louis's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "We're going to lay low for a while. I know someone who can help us, but we have to get out of town first." Harry nodded, trusting Louis even though fear gnawed at his insides. He stared out the window as the small town they both knew so well disappeared behind them, replaced by winding roads and dense forests. Hours passed, the tension between them thick. Louis barely spoke, his focus locked on the road, while Harry tried to process everything. How had their peaceful life turned upside down so quickly? Just when Harry thought he couldn't handle the silence any longer, Louis finally spoke. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this," he said quietly, his voice raw with emotion. "I wanted to keep you safe. I thought I could keep you separate from all of this." Harry shook his head, reaching out to place a hand on Louis's arm. "You didn't drag me into anything, Louis. I'm here because I want to be." Louis gave him a brief, grateful glance before his face hardened again. "We can't stay together if it means putting you in danger. I won't let them hurt you because of me." "Stop it," Harry interrupted, his voice firm. "I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure this out together." Louis's expression softened, his eyes flickering with a mix of gratitude and guilt. "I don't deserve you, you know." Harry squeezed his arm gently. "That's not your decision to make." For a brief moment, they shared a look that was filled with both love and fear. But that moment was shattered when Louis glanced in the rearview mirror and cursed under his breath. "What is it?" Harry asked, his heart jumping into his throat. Louis's grip on the steering wheel tightened, and he pressed down on the accelerator. "They're following us." Harry's eyes darted to the side mirror, and sure enough, there was a black SUV in the distance, speeding toward them. His heart pounded in his chest, adrenaline surging through his veins. "What do we do?" Harry asked, panic rising in his voice. Louis's jaw clenched as he weaved through the empty roads, taking sharp turns to lose the SUV. "Hold on." The car sped down a narrow road that twisted through the forest. Harry's fingers dug into the seat, his breath coming in short gasps as the trees blurred past them. He could hear the roar of the SUV's engine growing louder behind them, the relentless pursuit making his stomach churn with fear. Louis took another sharp turn, tires screeching as they barely stayed on the road. Harry glanced out the back window and saw the SUV fall back slightly, but it wasn't enough. They were still gaining on them. Suddenly, Louis swerved off the road, into a narrow dirt path barely wide enough for the car. The branches of the trees scraped against the sides of the vehicle as they sped through the dense woods, but Louis didn't slow down. Harry's heart was racing, his mind struggling to keep up with the chaos around him. "Louis, where are we going?" "Somewhere they can't follow," Louis replied, his voice steady despite the intensity of the situation. After what felt like an eternity, Louis finally pulled the car to a stop in a secluded clearing. He turned off the engine and took a deep breath, glancing at Harry. "We're safe for now," he said, though his voice didn't sound entirely convinced. Harry's hands were still trembling as he unbuckled his seatbelt. "What now?" Louis leaned back in his seat, running a hand through his hair. "We wait. If we keep running, they'll only find us again. But here, we have a chance to figure out what they want." Harry swallowed hard, the reality of their situation sinking in. They were hiding in the middle of nowhere, and the people after Louis weren't going to stop. Before either of them could say anything else, a sharp knock on the car window startled them both. Harry's heart leapt into his throat as he turned to see who it was. A figure stood outside the car, a tall man dressed in black, his face shadowed by the dim light of the forest. Louis's face drained of color. "Stay in the car," he whispered, his voice trembling for the first time. But Harry didn't have a chance to respond before the man spoke. "Louis Tomlinson," the stranger said, his voice low and authoritative. "It's time to stop running."